Well, a big welcome to everyone to our teaching online webinar. Nice to have those of you who've managed to join. I'm Dr. Craig Blurt, and I'll introduce myself and say a little bit more about what we're going to do. But firstly, just lovely to have you all here. And a special welcome to Mohammed Zafar Ahmed, who is, I'm sure you all know him. But I'm going to, if Zafar, if you're around, I'm going to let you pop in if you want to say a few things before we kick off and explore this exciting topic. I'm just going to stop my screen share. So those of you who are still trying to join, I can see people still coming in. Nice to have all of you here. And hopefully as we continue, we will have an exciting adventure as we discuss all sorts of things exciting around online learning and the digital era and where it's all headed. Right. This thing of Zafar can get his, you just need to turn your camera on if you want to come on.
Good afternoon, Craig. How are you?
I'm hearing you there in the background.
Oh, okay. I think my video is disabled by the host.
Oh, sorry, is it? That's terrible. We don't want that to happen.
Can you speak to the host quickly, please?
Yeah. Oh, I'll tell you what I'll do. I will.
Don't worry.
No, don't worry. I'm just going to make you. I'll make you a co-host, Zafar, and then you'll appear, and everyone should be able to see you. See if you can turn it. There you go.
Excellent.
You've been promoted.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Craig. Good afternoon. Good to see you.
Yeah, likewise.
Are you well, Craig?
I am very well. And how are you?
Excellent. Good. I'm good. I'm good. Thank you. To all of our guests that are on this webinar, good afternoon to you all, and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We're hosting this program under the auspices of the Association of Muslim Schools, a KZN chapter. We have extended this invitation to our membership throughout the country, and certainly there are members here from the Cape and Gauteng and Natal. And I want to extend on behalf of all of our delegates a great deal of appreciation to Craig, who without hesitation agreed to do this webinar for us and for the association. So Craig, thank you very much for taking the time and sharing this with us. Craig did not hesitate at all when I approached him. And I want to thank you for your spirit of generosity, Craig. And I hope for the rest of our staff or teachers who are joining this webinar will find this very useful. I can tell you, I followed Craig on a number of webinars. In fact, we're so convinced about the work he's doing that a number of our teachers at Al Falah College have already registered with his institute and have found it very beneficial. And I thought I'd sort of share this with the members of the Muslim schools community as well. And I hope it will be beneficial to everybody. Craig is passionate about what he does, and I hope some of that passion rubs up on some of us this afternoon. Craig, the floor is yours. Thank you very much. And I'm sure everybody is in for a wonderful, exciting journey this afternoon. Thank you, Craig.
Thanks, Zafar. Thanks for the intro. And again, lovely to have the opportunity to share this time with everyone. So what I want to quickly do is just for a moment tell you a little bit about myself so that we've got a bit of context, and hopefully then we'll get going. So we're going to be looking at teaching online, crash or fly. It's a crazy new world, and we're going to explore that. So just very quickly, a little bit about my background, so you've got a little bit of context as to what I'm passionate about, what I do. I'm involved in all sorts of things. I do a lot of speaking. Obviously, a lot of that speaking nowadays seems to be online, but I am a lecturer also at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. But besides that, I love all sorts of things like adventuring and outdoors and anything exciting. And I've written a number of books, from technical ones to ones on how to teach effectively with technology. Also a runner. For those out there who love running, I've run a lot of comrades. But that's my goal. My goal really is to try and creatively inspire people, to try and make, especially when it comes to teaching and learning, to make that's something that is passionate and exciting. Because at the end of the day, it's going to be education that really is going to be the key to changing our world. It always has been. And so we live in really interesting times. So education, we were always looking out in the future. And in the future, we could see it coming, this new era of education. But the future seemed to arrive before we were ready. And that, I think, has been a little bit disconcerting. I think for most of us, we knew that there would be a need to start to embrace technology, to bring it in more or less into our classrooms. But wow, I think if we had to ask this question in even January of this year, so when are you going to start using tech? How are you planning on using Zoom in the classroom? You would have gone, who? Zoom. And now, look at us. So I love this little video. If you haven't seen it, I'm just going to play it quickly. Because I managed to actually do some work with St. John's just before lockdown. It was quite interesting. This was probably the last it wasn't a webinar, using the wrong language here. The last workshop I ran, I was actually at the school, and it was on the Saturday, and I think the lockdown started on the Monday. All the news came out on Sunday, and then the lockdown. But it's fascinating, if you haven't seen this little video, of what happens when we try and do this.
Morning, girls. It's so lovely to be in your homes today. And I look forward to us going on.
Coffee.
We are set up our bags and
Cooks, what are you doing?
I'm just trying to upload the video for the kids on my
Your camera's on, man.
which means that it's two words that we put together to make another word.
So I'm going to just share one Bible verse with you today, and the you've gone. Blessing of God.
Moon and light form moonlight. The next word we have is cooler bag. Cooler bag can also be a compound word, cooler and then bag.
And he was always the hero.
I'm so excited. Sorry. I'm so excited to be starting term 2 with you.
And we have got Simon, I'm recording.
So my advice for studying this section: keep 2 timelines. Keep one for the opposition movements or the liberation movements, and then one for what the government.
So if you haven't seen that, that's, to me, was very funny. But that's the reality of this new situation. It just came on us so quickly, and it hasn't been easy adjusting. But what's interesting, for a long time, in my own experience, I've been speaking specifically to schools and universities, saying, and I use that as a metaphor, that there's an avalanche coming. And there is this huge avalanche or tsunami or whatever you want to call it coming that's going to change education forever. And we could see the writing on the wall because we've seen everything else change. We've seen business change. We've seen society change. We've seen government, industry, everything else change. And when we look at our students, we've seen for a while their way in which they're disconnected, the way in which we're finding it harder to engage with them. And we know, and we knew that something was coming. But I don't think we realized, or any of us actually realized, that the thing that would bring around the avalanche so quickly would be the whole pandemic around COVID-19. But that essentially accelerated something which was bound to happen anyway. It was on our doorstep, and it hit before we could even blink. And so at the height of it, 60 million educators were suddenly impacted, with nearly 1.4 billion students sent home. And I know in South Africa at the moment, we've sort of gone down, or we're going down to level 1, and a lot of people going back to school. But we're seeing, I mean, it's just crazy, but we're seeing the World Health Organization, we're seeing Europe now hitting highest levels again than they've even had before. And so it's just a crazy world we're in. But crazy teachers, what do we do when things just don't go right? Well, we leap in, and that's what's happened. And I honestly believe that the enthusiasm and the passion of teachers to just jump in and try and do something so we could keep education going deserves, major awards. And that's what we did. As teachers, as educators, we jumped in. We got the technology. We tried to figure out the strange Zoom thing and whatever else it is we might be using, whether it's Teams or whether it's Google Classroom. And we tried to figure out the stuff as best as we could and keep teaching and keep our students educated. However, the headlines and the research, and I'm involved, as I said, at a university and doing research and trying to find out what's actually happened, because this has been a fascinating insight into what is it like when we start to teach online, when we start to teach not only online, but bringing in more technology, because we understood that this obviously was part of the solution. But then we start to see this failing grades and students either not attending, or if they are attending, they're failing, and it's just not working. And that's quite disconcerting, because we sort of assumed that technology is going to be, whether we like it or not, it's going to play a role in the future of education. But if it's going to play a role, certainly we don't want something playing a role that's going to give us these sort of headlines. And I think that raises the all-important question, but why? Why is it that tech is so great in so many places? It's so great in turning businesses around and making them hyper competitive. And I mean, if you don't have technology in your business nowadays, you just don't survive. I mean, we could think of so many examples. The Uber just revolutionized the sort of taxi industry, and Airbnb revolutionized the hotel industry. It was clever use of technology. So it seems obvious that technology should be making a huge impact on our education, but it just appears anecdotally and in terms of the research that something's not right. So what's happening? Well, I want to try and answer that. And I think it's really important to understand what's going on. So we're going to rewind a little bit in our lives. We're going to go back. In fact, we're going to go back a few thousand years and get a little bit of context, because when we understand the context, we're going to understand hopefully what's going wrong. And not only that, I hope you're going to experience some of this in this webinar. So it's going to be experiential. So we're going to see that in a moment. So a little rewind. Let's pop back in it. So what was life? Well, life was happy. We were happy. We were living on Education Island, as I like to call it. And we were there, and our students were there, and we were teaching them. And we had textbooks and chalkboards and maybe even whiteboards and all sorts of non-major tech things. And education's been so happy. We've been happy on this island for thousands of years, teaching in the same way. I mean, it's been literally hundreds, if not thousands of years that we've taught, and our students were happy. But something's started to change in the last sort of 20 years or so. And some of our students would start getting a little bored. I know students have always, got a bit distracted, but they're getting really distracted. And some of them started to vanish from the island. And because across the way, there was another island that had emerged out of the sea, this glistening, shiny island called e-education. And some of our students sort of left and went there, and even a few teachers went there. But for most of us, you know what? Well, we were happy on Education Island. I mean, yeah. So there were warnings, and there was that mountain with the volcano on the island that rumbled occasionally. But okay, it was fine. And everything was fine in 2019 and even in January 2020. And then all of a sudden, Mount Virusius erupted. And this COVID lava just came boom and just like swept across our island. And there was no option now. I mean, what did we do? We literally all got into whatever we could, our boats, and we just started paddling like crazy to get to Education Island. We had to, because we could no longer sit teaching in our classrooms. All of a sudden, everything that we had done, everything that had been so natural to us, so familiar to us, ended. And this is scary. It's scary having to cross over to a new way of teaching when it's planned and organized. It's even more scary when we've got to do it under stress. And so we jumped into our boats, into our Zoom boats, into our Teams boats, into whatever it may be, and we paddled across. And we arrived at Education Island. And here we were. Maybe we had missed some of the scary parts, and there are some scary parts. There's the sea of change, and we got past all the sharks. And I mean, there's a lot of people that have been wrecked in digital teaching, and there's lots of ruins around of people who have tried things. But anyway, we finally arrived, and we found our little spot there. And we just embark. And now we're on the island, and we thought, well, let's start teaching. Let's start Zooming. Let's start sharing our PowerPoint slides like I'm doing. Let's do whatever we want. And even if you're back in the classroom, you're possibly doing the same thing. Now, I'm not going to go into detail about e-Education Ireland, but very quickly, I want to tell you that there's two sides to it. There's the left-hand side of the island, that's where we've landed, and the right-hand side of the island. And then there's two areas. So there's a zone on the left, a zone on the right. There's a north area and a south area. The north is all about self-paced teaching, whereas the south is all about teacher-led. But I just want to explain to you what's happened, because we've landed on what I call the digital zone, the left-hand side, and that's where we're teaching. And this is why we are seeing, even though we happen to be on e-Education Ireland, even though we've now maybe spent the last few months using technology for teaching, this is why we're seeing the results in remote learning is not working. We think, what? That's a pretty concerning. So what's the problem here? Why is it not working? Well, to answer that, I need to take you back now in our rewind a few thousand years. So, and I want to tell you very quickly about what I call the 4 education technology revolutions. Now, I'm pretty sure that you're familiar with the concept of the 4th industrial revolution. We're living in this 4th industrial revolution era where everything is about technology. And if you don't have technology, you can't do anything. Well, I want to suggest that there's actually been 4, and we're in the 4th education technology revolution, because there's been 4 edtech revolutions, very broadly speaking. And each of these has had quite a big impact on teaching and learning. Each of these edtech revolutions that came about changed how we would teach. So in the beginning, back before any of you were born, and me and any of us, most learning was oral, because there was no real way to record it. But somewhere along the line, inventions were made that enabled us to record things. And obviously, earlier it might have been chiseling out on stone or writing with a stylus on a piece of papyrus, but eventually it became the pencil and the pen. And those sort of technologies brought about the ability to actually start to record things. And so learning changed. Learning changed from conversation, being very interactive, where it started to become a little bit more interactive, because obviously you are doing something and you could be doing it with yourself, and it's interactive. The second edtech revolution was the printing press, Gutenberg's printing press. And all of a sudden, learning changed again, and we entered what I refer to as the print era. And this made learning rather inactive. In fact, this has been the predominant style of teaching and learning up until literally a couple of months ago. How are we teaching? With textbooks. And what do students do? They take content in textbooks, they regurgitate it and reproduce that content back to us. And so this print era has existed for hundreds of years. Well, very recently, probably in the last 30, 40 years, EdTech revolution number 3 was the computer. And this ushered in the digital era. And wow, this is amazing, because now we've got all this incredible technology that we can do amazing things with. Now we can use things like Word and PowerPoint. Now we can use technology like data projectors and computers. But in a way, all this did is it took what was happening in the print era, which was rather passive, and digitized it. And so the digital era wasn't an active and an engaging use of technology. It wasn't using the technology to change things. It tended to just replicate what we had seen, and learning became quite reactive. And so, you know, the classic thing, death by PowerPoint, where we just go on and on like I'm doing right now. What's happening right now is very passive. You're sitting on the other side of this, and even though I'm using all this technology, Zoom and screens and whatever, learning is reactive. But then there was a 4th EdTech revolution, and that was the internet. And the internet opened up what I refer to as the connected era. And so even now, we're in the connected era, but I'm not actually using the power of the connected era. Yes, sure, we connected via the internet, but the power of the connected era is it enabled learning to become interactive. So just think about the internet age. I mean, what are students doing? Well, when students grab their phone, what are they doing on that phone? They're on their phone and they are busy working, and they WhatsApping, and they Facebooking, and they sharing and tweeting and Instagramming. They are active. And so the internet and the World Wide Web brought about this possibility, this opportunity to become interactive. And this is where things are really important. You see, when we look at our island, on the left where we've landed is the digital zone. And the digital zone, as much as it uses technology and as much as it's amazing to learn how to use Zoom and PowerPoint and all those sort of things which are happening down the bottom here, if we're not using them in the right way, they are very passive. And we end up with Zoom and death by PowerPoint. And the same applies to providing YouTube videos or even Khan Academy videos or whatever the content may be for self-paced learning to our students. Even that can be very, very passive, because we're simply, as I see here, of using what I refer to as the copy-paste thing. We're taking what we had on Education Island, taking it across here and giving it a digital coating. What we need is we need to cross over to the other side. You see, splitting this island down the middle is the fourth education technology revolution. The internet enabled us to move to the other side, to the side of the island where learning is connected, where learning is active. And that is where things change dramatically. And that is what I want to have a look at. You see, we may have arrived on Education Island, whether we wanted to be there or not, but we still need to cross over to the connected zone. And I'm going to put it to you, that is why so much of the learning and the education and the teaching we are seeing happening at the moment is failing, because it's not adopting the right approaches. Technology is not the solution. It's pedagogy. And that's what we need. And so we need to cross to the active connected teaching zone. And in order to do that, I want you to come with me, because you can't do that if all we are doing is what I'm doing right now, is just talking at you. We need to do something a lot more interesting than that. So, time to cross over to the active connected zone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share another of my screens, and this one, I'm hoping, will let you in a little way experience the excitement of the active connected zone. Right, so here we go. Now what I'm going to need you to do, I'm going to need you to go and grab your phone or some sort of device and open the browser on it and go to www.menti.com and put in that code you can see on your screen. So I'm going to give you a moment to do that. So grab your phone or whatever you've got, some sort of device, and I want you to go to menti.com and put in that code. So www.menti.com, and there you will see the code 75, 73, 35, and 9. Right. Now, I'm going to give you a minute or so to do that. When you get there, you'll see this little heart. Hit the heart so I can feel that you're here. Because what we're about to do, we're about to do a crossover. We are going to cross over from being on this digital side, because everything we've been doing up till now has actually been this. I've been using PowerPoint and sharing with you online, but you have not been actively engaged. In order for us to go to this side, you need to be part of the learning. You need to be connected into my learning. And that's what the connected zone is about. And this is what makes all the difference. The single finding, we keep finding that coming over and over and over again, that is mentioned more than anything else in the research, is that our students are not engaged. And so we want to be engaged. So come across to this side of the zone. I can see, I'm feeling the love. Yes, that's it. Bring those hearts up the screen. Yes, if you've arrived at the, crossed over to the connected zone. You see, now if you stay just sitting and watching, which you can do, you can just sit and watch. You don't have to grab your phones or do anything. You can just carry on and watch. Essentially what's happening is you're staying in the digital zone. You're staying in the passive planes. You're staying in the space where learning is the least effective. And so in order for it to really be effective, we need to jump over. We need to learn how to engage, whether it's online, live teaching like this, whether it's blended teaching in the classroom, whether it's self-paced, whatever it may be. We need to bring in these other elements to activate our teaching and explore and enjoy the learning and teaching in the connected zone. Right. So you can still have an opportunity to join. I'm going to just jump ahead and look at a couple of things. Right. But I think to start, we should play a little game. And this is to get your brain and to see if your brains are in it. Now, a key part of learning, and a lot of the research points to this, is the whole feedback loop, understanding what our students know or don't know. So at the moment, I've been speaking to you. I might as well, I can't see you. I can see names and maybe comments, etc. But I can't really see what you're getting. Despite us being online, despite us being connected only digitally and me here and wherever you may be, I can still close the loop. I can still get a sense of what it is you're understanding or not understanding just by bringing in some simple pedagogy. So let's have a little bit of fun here and we will have a quick question. Now, you've got to be quick. The quicker you answer here, the more points you're going to get. Right, so what is the bridge? There are three things to this bridge. Technology, content. What do you think the bottom thing is? The thing that allows you to cross over from that digital zone to the connected zone. There is a very important word. It lets us cross over. Do you know what it is? Right, you've got 10 seconds to type it in. I did mention it very briefly in passing. Let's see if you were listening. You see, it's all about listening. You've got to focus. 2 seconds, 1 second, and time is up. Right, the faster you've got your answer and the more points you've got to get. Here we got pedagogy, pedagogy platform, engagement. Okay, and the correct answer is pedagogy. Yes, unfortunately, I'm sorry about it if you didn't get your spelling right. Yeah, it's a little bit, it's strict. It's very strict, you know. So I mean, I can see that was probably meant to be, and there's a pedagogy with an I. Right, but you had to get the spelling right for this particular quiz question. So let's see how the leaderboard is looking at. All right, Ahmed is right at the top, but E.T., you see now E.T. got it right. All of those people got it right, but E.T. was the fastest, quick fingers. Right, don't worry, it's not the end. There are more quiz questions to come, so keep your brains listening. I want to see if you are listening and following and staying connected with what is happening. Right, so there it is. It is the bridge of pedagogies. It's this that lets us switch from the digital zone to the connected zone. It's a bridge of pedagogies that we need. You see, we've known for years that pedagogy is key. I mean, all of you, I'm sure, at some stage, and I'm sure that's very recent, you went to teacher training college or to university and got a degree. And one of the things you would have learned about was about pedagogy. And it was great because you had to know about how I'm going to be teaching. Yet what happened? Somewhere along the line, technology arrived and pedagogy went out the window. I mean, how did that happen? We replaced the one Oji with the other Oji. And that is the essence of the problem. You see, you can use technology to get to e-education, to the digital zone, but you will not get across to the other side unless you have pedagogy. You see, it's not the technologies that are going to change. I'm not going to tell you about any amazing new technologies. I can show you how to use any of these great technologies, but when you apply a pedagogy to it, it changes from using technology to teaching with technology. There's a massive difference between using technology to teaching with technology. They are not the same. The difference between using and teaching is pedagogy. Right, someone asked me to read the code slowly. I'm going to read it. So again, go to menti.com. And if you want to join, the code is 75 73 35 9. So I can even type it in for you. So the code is 75 73 35 9. And I'll just pop that into the Q&A for those who are looking for it. Right. So what I want to tell you about is what is called the active connected teaching model. And this is a set of pedagogies that were developed out of many, many years of research. My PhD was actually based on trying to understand how learning happens in the digital age. This was obviously all pre-COVID and all of those things, but I could see the tsunami or the avalanche coming. And it was trying to understand two things. Number one is, what are the things that technology allows us to do that maybe we couldn't do as easily or effectively originally? And number two, what are the things that students naturally seem to do in this new digital 21st century? And trying to understand, based on that, what are the pedagogies that we should be adopting to be effective teachers? And this is the model, the ACT model, that was developed. And essentially, there are 5 pedagogies. In fact, there's 6. The very lowest pedagogy is the pedagogy of consumption. You see, the whole first part of our webinar was consumption. The pedagogy of consumption is when I speak and you sit and listen. The other 5 pedagogies are what are called active pedagogies: the curation, conversation, correction, creation, and chaos. And each of them involves activities, whether it's finding, explaining, solving, designing, connecting. They're very active. And not only are they active pedagogies, they develop what are called 21st century skills. And I'm sure all of you as educators are well aware of the importance of the development of 21st century skills, because we can't just impart content to our students. We've got to have them ready, that they are problem solvers, that they're critical thinkers, that they know how to communicate. Because look at the world we're living in. If we as teachers didn't have these skills, how would we have adapted like that to what just happened to us? No one sat down and said, guys, when the COVID plague comes, this is what you will do. No, that didn't happen. We had to have problem-solving skills. We had to have risk-taking, initiative, humility. You know, we saw the video, to be humble enough to put ourselves out there. And those are very important 21st century skills that we need to develop, but they are only developed intentionally if we design and we teach in a way that's going to bring it about. And that's what the ACT approach is all about. So I want to give you just this little very brief visit just in the next part of what we're going to cover now. I just want to just give you a taste. You know, like when you go to Pick and Pay or Woolworths or something and they have those little tasters, you know, you're, okay. It's just a sample, because I can't in this very short time do that it much justice. But I want to give you a sample of some of these pedagogies, and I'm only using this tool here. Now, there are other tools that can do this in so many better ways, but I just want to do this and just show you I can take a simple tool, this one that we're using here for this presentation, which is called Mentimeter, and really, actually, if I think about it, I can apply these pedagogies into this tool. I could do it with PowerPoint. I could do it with just about anything, as long as I think pedagogy, then technology. Right, so let's take the first pedagogy. The first one is the pedagogy of curation. Curation is something that's actually very natural to all of us. I mean, when you get up in the morning and you put your clothes on, you're curating. Or when you go to the shop to Pick and Pay or whatever it is, and you put things into a basket, you're curating because you have to select from all those things. Curating is something that all of our students do all the time. I mean, every time they get onto their social media and they are liking things, sharing things, posting things, what are they doing? They are pulling content and they are curating that content together. They are curating. And the nice thing about curating is it's very active, because you've got to make lots of decisions. You've got to arrange things. You've got all this stuff, and out of all of this stuff, what interests you? Well, now you're going to have to make a decision. That and that. Oh, well, what about if I say put it in order? Oh, now there's even more decisions. And so what's the difference? You're moving from pre-packaged content where I give you, read chapter 7, to why don't you go and find 5 articles and put them in order of importance around this topic. What have you just developed in that student? Reading skills, critical reading skills, the ability to think, to decide, to arrange, to see patterns. And that's what curation is about. And so curation builds all sorts of amazing 21st century skills, like creativity and critical thinking and problem solving. These are all massive skills because our student is now involved in finding and selecting and arranging and amplifying content. And so it develops very important skills. So I could talk about it, but how about you try it? So on your phone, what I want you to do is there are 5 21st century skills. I want you to arrange them in order and there are more than 5, but those 5, I want you to arrange them in order from the one you think is most important we develop in our students down to number 5. So you'll see there's a little drop down. You can choose in the first box. And if you think persistence is the most important, choose persistence. Then in the little next box, you'll be able to choose the second one. So I'm going to give you a moment to do that. Arrange them in order from the skill that you think is the most important out of these 5 that we should be developing in our students down to number 5. Obviously, they're all really important, but let's arrange. I want to see what order you come up. So I'm going to give you a moment. Now, at the moment, I've kept the results off of the screen for a very good reason, because I want you to think about it. You see, if you see what everyone else is saying, what tends to happen is we just copy what they're doing. You see, at the moment, you're being forced to think for yourself. And so which one is number 1? But now is number 2 more important than number 3? How would I arrange these? And so now you're having to think about it. Each one is another decision. Right, so let's pop up the results and see how we're looking. Right. What happened? I lost them for a second there. Okay, there they go. Right. So, number 1, critical thinking is coming up number 1. Creativity is coming in at 2nd place. Problem solving, persistence, and risk taking is the order of the group. There's been a change, but some people are still finishing it off. So, problem solving is just sneaked up the 2nd place, just above creativity. Fantastic. You see, there's no right order. But what's interesting is that you had to think about the order for yourself. And now whatever order you chose, look at this order and you're thinking, but I had risk-taking far higher. Excellent, because that's the type of thinking we want. Because if I just presented it to you and said, well, this is the top 5, you would have gone, yeah, top 5. Now, you've actually had to think about it. And that's what curating is about. Even though this is just a simple example of arranging something, by you applying your mind to it, and for those of you who did it, got much more value out of this very little simple exercise than those who merely sat and consumed. And so that's a very simple example of curating. The second of the ACT pedagogies is the pedagogy of conversation. Now, just think about it for a moment. If you go into a lecture, or if you're at a seminar or whatever it may be, and the speaker stands up, normally, if he goes for 45 minutes, me including sitting here, yeah, you might be okay. If he goes any longer than that, you're going to be done. In fact, most of us, 30 minutes would be really happy. But that's amazing. Why is it that we can sit and listen to a lecture or a presentation for 35, 45 minutes, an hour most, yet we can sit at a coffee shop and have a conversation, or around the braai, or having a meal with our friends and talk for hours on end? Why is it? Well, quite simply, the difference is the one is one-way communication. You are sitting as the listener and merely consuming. The other is you're an active participant. They speak, you speak. They question, you answer. You question, you do, whatever it is. And that's what conversations are. Conversations are active. And what's exciting is until recently, until the development essentially of the internet and the World Wide Web, conversations were all face-to-face. But now we have these tools that enable us to have conversations online. And they are very, very powerful. In fact, they actually have some benefits that are even more powerful than face-to-face. Face-to-face conversations are, of course, very powerful because you've got facial expression and tone. But online, you can have some anonymity. So maybe your students are more emboldened to make their point. Another huge benefit is there is an artifact, there's a transcript of the conversation, and that's very useful because you can go back and revisit the conversation and think about it. In fact, you'll see the next pedagogy is correction. So you could actually say, okay, we talked about this topic like this. What do you think is right or wrong? And so conversation is very powerful. And so let's have a quick little conversation right here inside of Mentimeter. What do you think helps increase student engagement? So if you had to come up with some idea, you think, well, you know what, if I was going to get more student engagement, and I'm talking about using digital things, if you got to use digital and it's going to be a part of what you're doing, whether it's blended or whether it's online, what do you think would help increase the level of student engagement, because the research is telling us that this is the biggest problem. We're using the technology and the engagement is low. And the result of that is poor performance, poor learning, failing grades. And all of this is being attributed to technology. And I'm going to put it to you, it's not the technology that's the problem. It's the lack of pedagogy that's the problem. So in your mind, what do you think would help increase student engagement? So I'm going to give you a moment to answer. We've got a couple of answers that come in. I'll let a few more come in and we'll have a quick look. So essentially what we're doing here in a very simple way, and again, as I said, there's so many other tools that are really cool that allow us to do this much more effectively. And in fact, learning through online conversation is very powerful when you understand the 4 ways in which you can do it. So we're just doing something that's called the ad hoc method at the moment. But even this little method, I'm getting to have a conversation with you online, mediated through technology, but we're connecting. So let's have a quick look at what some people are saying. So ways you think you could increase engagement? Obviously, yes, conversation, live quizzes, that helps. An online debate. Yeah, I love that one. This is probably one of my favorite things to do. You know, in classroom debates, students naturally are a little bit afraid and get scared. Online debates, wow, how excited do they get? And I do this in some of my teacher training, online debates. And as I said, the big benefit of this is that after the debate, you still have a transcript, and that can continue to assist you with your learning. Thought-provoking lessons, absolutely. Google quiz forms, yes, get them involved. Game-based learning, exactly. And in fact, a lot of the tools try and bring that whole concept of gamification. Open-ended question, exactly, that's what we're doing here. Group work, get more people involved. Videos and similar to this, Menti-Minute collaboration with real-life situations, again, adding that real element to it. Debates, getting them actively involved, use similar methods to social media, which have a grabbing effect on students and apply them to lessons. And that is exactly it. That is spot on. You see, when I was doing the research to try and understand what are the pedagogies we should be using in the 21st century, do you know what I studied? By research, I went and lived with some digital natives, as they are called. And you know where my digital natives were living when I did this 8, 9, 10 years ago? They were living in Facebook. I was studying how people interacted, how students lived life inside the zone, the social media zone. And it was by watching that I could quickly start to see what are the pedagogies they're actually using as part of their natural life. So absolutely spot on. And so those are all the things that help increase student engagement. And so what we're really doing here, even though this is just a very quick example, we're having a conversation. And I could have extended this because I say, okay, someone has suggested debates. Why do you think that's actually not a good idea? And what would be a better way than using debates? Or what are the risks of debates? And I could pop up another question and we could continue this as a conversation. But I think you get the idea. The third of our pedagogies, of the ACT pedagogies, is the pedagogy of correction. Now, I find this one particularly interesting because as teachers, as educators, we tend to be quite obsessed with correct. But the world has moved, and digital has enabled us to have a slightly different and really important concept of correcting. Doesn't mean correct's not important, but correct is a destination. Correcting is a journey, and correcting is so important. Now, let me give you an example. And most of you won't even probably remember this because you fought. I can see, I just looking at your names, like you look far too young to remember this. But back in the olden days, I remember in my early days of lecturing, I would prepare OHPs. You remember those things? Overhead projector slides. And my original slides were written with a marker, a permanent marker on the slide, and you'd write these things out. And then she got a little bit fancy and could actually print on the slides, but it was all handwritten. And so I'd prepare all my slides for the class on OHPs, and then I'd have big files of these things. You'd arrive in the lecture room and you'd drop that on and you would speak about the content. Now, I would remember that if a student raised their hand and said, Craig, I just want to say, you've got that over there, that's wrong. I would look at that, look at them and like, there's no way that's wrong. Can't be wrong. Because for me to change it is a big drama. And so it has to be correct. And the same thing concept is around textbooks. You print a textbook and although we know it's not correct, it's so difficult to change. Now, fast forward to the digital age, you type something in Microsoft Word and someone points out it's not correct, or your PowerPoint slide's not perfect. Oh, don't worry, edit it. It's constantly correcting. And that's the difference between correct and corrected. We have tools that enable us to constantly improve. I call it the beta mindset. You heard of things that they're in beta. This new tool has come out and it's still in the beta version. Well, that's what teachers are about. We live in a world where things can constantly be corrected, and learning through mistakes is critical to modern education, and technology lets us do that. So rather than us being afraid of mistakes, rather than us not wanting our students to make mistakes, we actually need to encourage them to learn through mistakes, because this is the feedback loop. This is the thing that lets me get an insight into what you know. So, time for pedagogy of correction. Get your fingers ready for our question. Now, remember, you've got to answer quick if you want max points. So, a couple of little questions, because we're going to see who's been listening. The fourth EdTech revolution ushered in the what? The digital era, the connected era, the print era, the oral era. Quickly, you want more points, and you've only got 5 seconds left. 4, 3, 2, 1. Bang, timer. Right. Hopefully you got your answer in time, and here we go. Yes. 10 people were listening. The fourth EdTech revolution ushered in the connected era. Yes, the third EdTech revolution, which was the computer, brought about the digital era. See, I told you, you've got to listen. But let us see who is top of the leaderboard after the second round of questions. E.T. was top, but E.T.'s been dethroned. E.T. has been dethroned, and we're going to have a change of leader. Yes, Moaza is on the top of the Armored Fantasy, the top 3. Yep, but don't worry. E.T. and others can still come back, because here is question number 3. Get ready, loosen your thumbs. I often find it's just good just to do a little bit of thumb loosening, finger loosening, just roll your head a little bit. Here we go. Question number 3. Remember, the faster you answer, the more points you get. So, I didn't ask you this. Whose logo is this? But it's so obvious. There's no way you're going to get this wrong. Whose logo is this? Quickly, get your answer. No one ever gets this one wrong. I just put it in because it's all... Oh, no. What? Zafar, you see these real clever people. What's happened? Yeah, you see, one of two things happened. You were too quick. You as always read carefully. Or you actually don't know that it's called WhatsApp and not WhatsApp. So here's a, you're going to look cool with your students. I often see teachers, they're going to look cool, and they'll say, I'm going to WhatsApp you the information. No. It's WhatsApp. And, I use Twitter. No, it's not Twitter. It's Twitter. So you want to look cool? WhatsApp, Twitter, not WhatsApp and Twitter. Well, that sure has mixed things up. Some people answered too quickly, and we're going to see that the leaderboard change. E.T. getting it right. So E.T.'s probably back in it, where some of those top 3 didn't get it. And new people coming in. And E.T.'s back up to the top again. Well done. And Mo and Ahmed and Fantasy on the top of the leaderboard, holding strong. Question number 4. Here we go. Loosen up. Get ready. A very easy question, I'm sure. I only ever asked. The pedagogy of correction is about learning from, and note, think before you answer. The pedagogy of correction is about learning from. Think before. I know you think it's obvious. I can see. No. 3, 2, 1. Time's up. Oh, yes. Oh, I need 3 getting it right. Oh, no. You see, you're not listening to me. Just not listening. Yes. You see, 15 of you chose the word mistakes. Ooh, look at me. I can see the other ones, they've got spelling errors in them. Of course they've got spelling errors in them, because that's what correction is about. Correction is about learning from your mistakes. So now you just chose the correct one without the mistake in it. How can that be the right answer? The right answer is the one with the mistake in it, because that's where correction works. Yeah, you didn't see that. I did say think before you answer, but 3 people were thinking. Right, so I bet you that changed up the leaderboard a little bit. Oh, only Risky and you, E.T., you two are clever. I'm suspicious about E.T. Probably got some inside information there. He is taking on the lead, and Mo and Ahmed and Fantasy and Risky up on the top 5 there. Right, well, never mind. There's one more question that's going to come near the end. We have just experienced a little bit of correction, and there's so many amazing tools that we can use for correction, because they enable us to engage. They enable us to not only activate the learning, but they enable us to get a sense of where people are at. And it's very important that you almost purposefully encourage your students to make mistakes, because as we all know, you never learn until you make mistakes. And so it's a very important pedagogy. As we come to the second to highest of the pedagogies in the ACT model, is the pedagogy of creating. You know, it's so easy to sit and consume content, to watch a YouTube video, to merely read a textbook. But it's so much harder and better for learning to be involved in creating content. Because the moment you start creating is when learning happens. And there's so many ways in which you can do it. Let me just give you a very, very simple task. It sounds simple. I want you to write something original about online teaching. A sentence, a line, something you think, wow, this is an original thought about online teaching. I'm going to give you a moment to do that. It's not easy, because something original about online teaching, what? Yeah. See what you can come up with. Right, I see we've got a few that have submitted something. It's quite a challenge. You know, I could put up some ideas, and these are some original thoughts and ideas about how to go about online teaching, how to be effective. And again, you would have just sat there and gone, yeah, right. You see, when you had to come up with it, it all of a sudden had to ignite your brain. Those 10 who have now submitted something and the others who are still trying, you're having to create something. And the difference, the amazing cognitive difference between simply reading and consuming and creating is absolutely huge. And there's so many exciting ways in which we can use this pedagogy. So let's have a quick look at some of what people have popped up. Discovering new things. It's frustrating. Now, I don't know if that's original. I think everyone finds it frustrating. Making it interactive allows for greater creativity. Online teaching is rewarding in an understated way. I like that. That's very interesting. Yes, that is original thoughts. You know, often we don't understand the other benefits of online teaching and some of the things that, you know, are not so obvious. And I think that there are rewards that come out of it that we probably don't even realize until we start to reflect on it. You need to, yeah, you need to be prepared to go crazy first. Yeah, and maybe that is part of the journey. It requires you to be creative. Online teaching taught me endurance, persistence, and consistency. Great way of dispensing content, effective as well thought out. It is a highly dynamic process. It is constantly evolving. A mindset change from spoon feeding to doing it for themselves. And I think that, you know, is not only for our students, but that's for us as teachers and educators as well, because we've had to change our whole mindset. It can be just as engaging as in-person teaching. Yes, if done right, it's fun, absolutely. Online teaching becomes more challenging once we understand that children are all different on so many levels. Absolutely. You know, and now how do we take our online teaching to try and cater for that? Because it has the ability to cater for that, but now we have to think it's not just about one size fits all. Here's the video, watch it. You see, and this is where the feedback loop comes in. This is where the activity comes in. This is where the engagement is absolutely critical. Right, so thank you for some of those original ideas that you came up with there. And very quickly get to the last of the pedagogies. And this is the pedagogy of chaos. And it's often a pedagogy that people think, wow, is it a pedagogy? I mean, I understand using curation and conversation and all of these things. And I mean, chaos doesn't seem like something you would purposely bring into a teaching environment, whether online or in the classroom, to bring about learning. Well, I want to put it to you that it's a very important pedagogy, and chaos can be a very powerful tool if used effectively and purposefully. You see, the opposite end of the spectrum is control. And that has been the world that our students have grown up in, and much of us as teachers have used. You know, you just think about, if you've ever watched the amazing work of Sir Ken Robinson, who just passed away recently, and he spoke a lot about how we are in this industrial era and how we have classrooms and ringing bells. This all built on an industrial paradigm, and rows that people stand in, and grades, and everything is very ordered in sequences. And you read the textbook, and there's a set of answers, and they found at the back, and you go from chapter 1, and it's control. But that's not the reality of the world that we live in. The world we live in is dynamic. The world we live in is fluctuating. The world we live in requires us to respond to a COVID-19 crisis by tomorrow. The world we live in is constantly changing. There's too much information. There's missing information. There's conflicting information. There's fake news information, as Trump would say. And how do we teach our students to make sense of that? How do we teach our students to take all this overwhelming content and get clarity? And that's what this pedagogy is. This pedagogy is about using two things interchangeably or together: pressure and perception. You know how diamonds are formed? Because diamonds are just bits of carbon. It's that pressure that creates the beautiful diamond. And so we use pressure in order to help us to see clearly. And you see, sometimes when what puts a lot of pressure on you, you're like, and in that moment you get an insight. But you see, often as teachers, as educators, we remove the pressure. We will say to our students, well, okay, you're going to do the following. You're going to answer in 300 words, and you're going to use this font, and you're going to do it like this, and it's all laid out. Yes, and so there's an involved maybe of creating, but we remove the element of chaos, and that's not the reality of the world we're going to live in. We need to actually purposefully introduce some of that pressure, some of that chaos into learning. And so here's your pressure test. Right. I'm going to give you only 3 minutes, which I'm going to start now. And in those 3 minutes, what I want you to do is I want you to write a poem. Now, if you understand poems, poems don't have to rhyme or anything. Poems are things that are expressing a sentiment. Now, well, not just any poem. I want you to write a poem about teaching. Yep, 3 minutes is now started. You've got 3 minutes to compose a poem, either about some of what we've covered today, which would even give bonus points for your poem, or something to do with teaching in general in this modern, active-connected teaching era. One, your time is ticking. Feel the pressure, and may it help you to perceive clearly. You've got 2.5 minutes left. One minute 45. 1 minute left. Fifteen seconds. Right, and the time is up. Your poem should now be submitted. Right, let's see what a bit of pressure did. Yesterday I lined them up. Today I allow them to stand up front. Tomorrow they will instruct from podium. Together we will become better. Oh, this is beautiful. Headaches, neck pain. I'm feeling the pressure. I'm feeling the pain. Now's the laptop. Eyes burning. It's really worth it. Yes, if my students can learn while so very far away from me, this is worth it. Look at that. Look at the beauty of coming from the heart. Anxiety for the lesson. Excitement, enthusiasm. Focused by syllabus. Possible success. Grateful conclusion. I think we have to put these in a book of poems. Videos, quizzes, and PowerPoint. Engage the learner and keep them on point. Absolutely. I, the teacher, empowered you to become a teacher. Absolutely. I am a teacher. Thought I knew pedagogy and content. Then came COVID and down the drain it all went. That one even rhymes. Very good. Oh, child of today, how to help you see the world you live in. A dark and scary world filled with hope and opportunity. Do not let the dark overpower the light. You are limitless, potential. Find your path and tread it head high. Beautiful, beautiful. Already the end of week 100,000 I lost count with. Grade 10 online with ours where I greet on Google Meet and teach in a house and with a mouse. Here, there, and everywhere. One thing has not changed, and that's that I care. Oh, that is awesome. Absolutely. I love it. And even a little emoji in there. Pedagogy is key. Just feel, use the technology for a new you and me. Zooming from my room, kids are spinning on a loom. Can't see any of my kids. They muted themselves. Education is a mess. And absolutely, that's a real problem. If there isn't some sort of engagement, and again, even if you're using Zoom and in a sense you're all muted, we can still engage, and that's very critical. Diamonds are formed under pressure. Good students are formed under pressure. Give them chaos to undo the pressure. Yeah, unlock the diamonds. I love teaching. It's not just preaching. It's not like preaching. It's expressing and sharing. It's paperwork and unnecessary extra that puts me off track. What can I do? It's all in the pack, but I love teaching and makes feel overwhelmed. Teaching is not only preaching. Use resources and other forces. Think out of the box. There is an island split by a river. How will we ever cross? Oh, look, there's a bridge. We have arrived in the connected age. And absolutely, that's exactly where you've arrived. Well done. So just for a little fun thing. But again, when you create that pressure to actually make something succinct, it does focus us. And chaos, and there's so many very exciting ways you can use chaos, is extremely powerful. So just to pull this all together, Professor Swartz from Stanford University heads up their Graduate School of Business in Education, had an interesting sort of thing. He was talking about education and how we approach it in the modern digital age. And he started actually, prior to this quote, he said, it's a giant mountain of goo. And he said, I can tell people they need to teach better, but if I don't give them things that are easy for them to implement, they won't do it. And that's absolutely true. And that's stuck with me. There are two things we need if we want to change education today. And we've got the technology, but we need to have approaches. We need to have pedagogies that can transform these approaches. That can move us from the digital to the connected zone, but they have to be easy and they have to be effective. And if we can get that right, we will change how we teach with technology. Note I said change how we teach with technology. We're going to move from just using to teaching, but in order to cross over the bridge, we need pedagogies that are easy and effective. And so that is essentially what the ACT approach is all about, which brings us to our final question, question 5 of 5. So if you drop that phone somewhere, you better grab it quickly, because here is the final question to determine the ultimate winner and the one who has been focused most, or had the fastest thumbs. The bridge that lets us cross over to the connected zone is called the ACT Bridge of... Type it in, come on. Now, no one should get this wrong this time. Have you been focused? Did you concentrate? Is your spelling right? What is the name of the bridge? It is the ACT Bridge of... Right. Come on, type it in quickly, quickly, quickly. All the people are looking up. How did we spell that word? I can't remember. Right, you just got 5 seconds. Get it in. Otherwise, you're going to get no points. 3, 2, 1. And time is up. Here we go. Let's see. We got most getting it right. There was still some who came up with some other answers. Right. So the correct answer is either pedagogy or pedagogies. Both of those are correct. Unfortunately, pedagogy still was not correct. You see, you've got to stay focused. Okay. And even though I told you, and we even had a question on that, some still got it wrong, which is fine, because this is what it's all about. It's about constantly feedbacking and saying, yeah, okay, so we're not getting that. So what is the problem here? But I think everyone understood what it is. And that is the key. We've got amazing tech. I mean, I look at this Zoom stuff and even PowerPoint and Google Slides and all of these things are absolutely amazing, and Moodle and LMSs. But if all we are doing is using them, they just become technologies. They make us efficient. They don't make us effective. And that's what we want. We want to become effective teachers. So finally, at the top of the leaderboard, E.T. I don't know what happened to E.T. that time, but here we're going to go. It could be a change. And right at the end, Mo is the winner. E.T. gets knocked off the podium. There's going to be, I can imagine there's absolute distress. And I feel so sorry for E.T. Sorry, E.T. Well done to Mo, and then below E.T. Fantasy, Risky, and Ahmed coming up in the top 5. Well done. And to everyone who was involved. So that's the journey. And I invite you, if you want to be part of this, if you want to learn more, I'm working, as Zafar mentioned, with Alpha College and with some of the teachers there who are on the online course. And in fact, we've now get a whole extended version to the course that includes a whole lot of other aspects as well, because it's something that has to keep changing. But what doesn't have to change, while the tools change, while there's new tools and exciting tools, again, it makes all the difference whether, if you look at the bottom here, we're not actually interested in efficiency. We're interested in effectiveness. We're interested in developing millennial age skills around ways of working and ways of thinking. And in order to get to this side, we've got to understand these pedagogies. And so if you want to find out more, there's a little short form that you can fill in, and I'll send you some information about the offer that we have, that we gave to Alpha, and I'll extend it to the other schools who want to be part of this. And it's an exciting journey. And the point is, we don't have to get it right. And the exciting thing is, we don't have to have all the greatest tech, because this is not about great tech. You know what, at the end of the day, a pen or a pencil, as I mentioned earlier in the 4 EdTech revolutions, are technologies, but it's what we do with them, how we use them, that makes all the difference. Those are the pedagogies, and that's what's vital. And that's what this middle thing is. If we're going to simply use technology, we're going to run around this side of the island for the rest of our days, and we're going to waste lots of money, and we're going to believe all sorts of myths, and we're going to have confusion, and we're going to have snoozing, sleeping students. But if we go across to this side, because we apply the appropriate pedagogies, we're going to find that we can get into the active, connected teaching zone. And that makes all the difference. So if you want to find out more, you can go to that link there, bit.ly/e-ed, E-ed. And there's just a little form that we will share there. And plus, I will share it with everyone. I did see that Mohammed had something, or someone mentioned something about getting the recording. We will share the recording of this afterwards for those who want to see it. So yeah, the journey to E-Education Ireland is really exciting. And I've just shared a little bit of it with you in this very short time. It's been absolutely wonderful having you. I'll take a couple of minutes now to pick up some questions if there are any. And we don't have to get it right. That's the bottom line. You don't have to understand everything. And I mentioned it earlier, it's the beta mindset. We can make mistakes, but if we do it together, and if we do it with pedagogy, then technology, that's going to make all the difference. So absolutely wonderful to have all of you join me. And so that's all I really wanted to say. And there, the link has been shared in the chat for those of you who want to get the link direct. So it's in the chat there, so you can copy it there. Are there any questions? So if anyone's got any questions, you can now pop them into there is a Q&A. You will notice on the bottom of your screen that you can click. You'll see it says Q&A. So will we get a recording? It says Mohammed, yes, that we will absolutely get a recording, as I mentioned just a moment ago. We will share a recording out with everyone of this webinar so you can watch it again. And if you've got any questions, you can obviously come back to me via email or via that form, or you can connect with me via our website, which is activatedacademy.com. So any questions from anyone? Anyone have anything they need to ask? This is your moment. So I'm going to give you just a moment to ask a question if you have anything. Otherwise, it's just going to be out onto the weekend and the journeys that lie ahead. And I know there are many exciting journeys. I do know that Zafar was telling me a lot about the different schools you have. And obviously, we're not all in the same place. You know, some schools are more resourced than others. Some schools have better technology. Some schools have teachers who know things better than others. And that's always going to be the case. So we have challenges with our students. But at the end of the day, we can take the smallest thing. We can take the simplest thing. And if we do it properly, it makes all the difference. And so what I want to suggest to you is, and this is what I try and teach in the course, I will show you, and I have a thing that's called the ACT Toolbox. And the ACT Toolbox, when you open it, there are hundreds of amazing apps like Mentimeter and simpler ones that you can get going and use within a minute. But you see, it's not those that are important. It's having our eyes open to how we teach with those things, the pedagogies that underpin them. And so once you understand that, every time you see a new app, you see it in a totally different way. So very quickly, just to pick up on some of the questions that have popped in, will virtual teaching encourage homeschooling? Well, that's a great question. My view is that I think we're in for a massive change. I think that, you know, if we have to just take what's happened for business, for example, and for all of us, you know, employees, all of a sudden we've been doing a lot of our job. Now it's harder for you and I as lecturers and as educators, but how many people have been doing their jobs from home using Zoom and stuff like that? And I believe it's going to make a massive impact on business. It's going to change dramatically. And that's what the predictors are saying. And I believe the same is going to be with education. I don't think we're ever going to go back to how it used to be. And so if students, which they will go back to schools, and I run another webinar every second week, and we'll be running one the week after next again, called Behind the Screens. And Zafar was one of our panelists on that. And we try and look to the future of what education is going to be like. And I think part of it is will there be more homeschooling? I think there's going to be a lot more homeschooling, but not just homeschooling. I think there's going to be this blend where people on homeschools are linked with, saying, real schools. And so you might find that only 10% of your students are now in a real school, at your school physically, but now the reach and the opportunities. And so the model, I believe, is changing absolutely dramatically. So thanks for that question. I'm not a teacher, but I work in a school that has limited resource in terms of technological devices, as the majority of learners come from poor socioeconomic backgrounds. What would you suggest we focus on to ensure we are effective in this fourth revolution? That often is a challenge, and it's been a challenge even for myself who works at the university. I mean, I have students obviously who during this time went home to really poor environments, and it's difficult for them. And I would say there's all these pedagogies, and you can pick on any of them, but let's just take a simple one like the pedagogy of conversation. There are some really, really simple tools. So how many people I've heard have been using as one of their biggest tools is WhatsApp? Why is WhatsApp so effective? Why has it been so effective in supporting education? Why? Because it is a tool built around one of the pedagogies, conversation. And all of a sudden, even though you may be doing something on the Zoom thing and their cameras are off, or they're not even on the Zoom thing, or they're watching a video, they can still be connected. And so I suggest that once you understand what is possible, you can take so many simple tools that are available to anyone, and start to use them to engage and activate the teaching and learning process. So great. Thanks, Ahmed. That's another great question. Right, so I think those are all the questions. I don't see any others. I'll just check here. Sometimes people put questions there. Right, that's all the questions I can see on the various devices. Right, so from me, I just want to say a big thank you to everyone. And again, especially to Zafar for setting this up. It's been an absolute honor to work with him and to have him on my panel and to be involved in the work that we're doing. This really is a journey for everyone. We've got to figure this all out together. I understand aspects of it. I understand it all. And none of us understand it all. And we don't know what tomorrow's going to be. We've got some ideas, but what's it going to be like in 5 years' time? I believe it's going to be interesting. I believe we can't stay as we are. All of that is past. We've got onto the new island now. There's no really going back. The technology's here. We're finding new ways. And now we've just got to start to do it effectively. And yes, just take the negative and turn it into the positive. Your poems were great. They inspired me. I'm hoping they inspired you. And so thank you everyone for being part of this. Thank you for being part of the journey. And I hope to be able to connect with some of you in the future going forward. But even if I don't, give it all. Be passionate, as I'm sure you are. The fact that you're here on a Friday afternoon shows you're passionate. So thanks everyone. Have a lovely weekend and stay safe as we continue on in this rather scary world that we're living in at the moment. So thanks everyone. And that's it from me.